Hola a todo el mundo y bienvenido a mi canal. Yo me llamo Sirey. Soy una abogada afrolatina licenciada practicando la ley criminal, pero como todos ustedes, a mí me fascina cuando estamos hablando de casos de crímenes reales. En este video vamos a hablar del caso de Michaela Rylaarsdam. Si quieren más video en español, nada más dime allá abajo. Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Desiree. I'm a licensed and practicing Afro-Latina criminal attorney who, much like the rest of you, has a severe fascination with true crime cases. Listen, today we're going to talk about a case that's a little bit kinky, pun intended. We are going to talk about a case that describes exactly what could go wrong when you're into a little BDSM. Without any further description, let's just get into it. Today, we are going to talk about the case of Michaela Rylaarsdam. Back in April of 2023, when all of this occurred, Michaela was a 29-year-old married mother of 3. Michaela and her husband, I guess, kind of had some sort of arrangement in which Michaela was allowed, and I'm saying that for lack of a better term, to create spicy content for her man and for others. Michaela was known professionally as Ashley Sincall, and I'm going to spell that on the screen so you can see exactly how it's spelled. But basically what happened is this. In April of 2023, Michaela met a man by the name of Michael Dale, who was 56 years old at the time, on some sort of website where creators would get paid for doing specific things for customers, if you know what I'm saying. It wasn't OnlyFans, or at least not to my knowledge. The way that the media has been describing it, it's just a different website where creators would get paid for doing different little kink fetishes and things for men or women or whoever, just clients in general. Michaela and Michael agreed that Michaela would help Michael kind of live out his sexual fantasies in exchange for $11,000. According to the detective who testified at Michaela's preliminary hearing, some of those fantasies were quite interesting.
Asking her to buy boots and glue them on his feet with Gorilla Glue. He was asking her to buy dildos and glue them in his mouth. And he also asked her to pour pools of Gorilla Glue into his eyes to glue them shut so that she was the last girl that he would ever see.
Michael wanted Michaela to Gorilla Glue a pair of women's boots onto his feet, and she obliged. Michael wanted Michaela to wrap him up like a mummy, and she obliged. There was even some talk about Michael requesting Michaela to shove some dildos into his mouth. It should also be noted that throughout the encounter, Michael is said to have been intoxicated, but Michaela obliged with his request nonetheless. I should also tell you guys, and I don't know if it's important for you guys to know, but Michael was living with roommates, I think about 6 of them, and one of them testified at the preliminary hearing. 3 of them were home at the time of all of this and were hearing everything that was going on. But ultimately, here is what happened. Michaela placed a plastic bag over Michael's head during the encounter. And when she did that, she left him to his own devices on the bed for a total of 7 to 8 minutes. She started recording some more spicy content, sent it to her husband. Her husband responded. They were all giddy, they were happy, they were toyish and coquettish. And in that time, Michael died. At a certain point after that time had elapsed, Michaela had noticed that Michael wasn't in the best of conditions. So she runs outside and tries to get assistance from some of his roommates, and comes to the rescue one of the roommates, a man by the name of Andrew Smith. Andrew says that Michaela was frantic. She was trying to render CPR. She was trying to assist, but they ultimately decided that it was far too late. Michaela wasn't arrested right when this happened. She wasn't arrested on the scene. But let's fast forward 2 years to where we are right now, year 2025. At some point, an autopsy was conducted that concluded that Michael's cause of death was asphyxia. and the manner of death was homicide, and Michaela was ultimately arrested and remains in custody, pending a charge of second-degree murder. I wanted to talk to you guys about this case, specifically because it just came on my radar, because a preliminary hearing was conducted for Michaela's charge of second-degree murder. If you guys will remember, I've told you guys before and we've talked about it before, but I'm here to be the broken record to you guys and repeat myself as many times as you need me to. A preliminary hearing is just a mechanism that's used to determine whether or not probable cause exists as to the charge or charges that a defendant is facing. So they had a preliminary hearing as to the second-degree murder charge, and I wanted to talk to you guys about the preliminary hearing itself. But before we do that, let's see how California classifies second-degree murder. The difference between second-degree murder and first-degree murder is pretty much premeditation, and it's deliberation. Premeditation and deliberation. This doesn't qualify as a first-degree murder case because I think it would be darn near impossible for the prosecution to prove that there was premeditation and deliberation, considering the circumstances we're dealing with here. However, second-degree murder requires the prosecution to prove that the defendant killed someone with malice aforethought. Okay. Under California law, there are two kinds of malice aforethought: express malice and implied malice. Proof of either is sufficient to establish the state of mind required for second-degree murder. A defendant acts with express malice if he or she unlawfully intends to kill. A defendant, on the other hand, acts with implied malice if the defendant, 1, intentionally committed the act, 2, the nature and probable consequences of the act were dangerous to human life, 3, at the time the accused acted, the defendant knew his or her act was dangerous to human life, and 4, the defendant deliberately acted with conscious disregard for human life. So after reading that definition with you guys, do I think that there's a small probability that the prosecutors in this case can probably convince a jury that there was malice aforethought, not expressed but implied? Sure. She ignored him for 8 minutes. She knew that having a plastic bag over his head, whether or not he requested the act to be done, could have led to serious, serious consequences like we're dealing with here. So sure. But I kind of think that this should be a manslaughter case. Now, before you guys get on me, because I've just noticed a recent trend where you guys like to get on me for my stated opinions, I want you guys to hear from some other lawyers who agree with exactly what I am saying.
So there's a couple things to unpack here. So first degree murder, which is usually the premeditation aspect, that's not on the table because it's not like she planned to harm him. Now, second degree murder, definitely on the table because of the fact that she engaged in something that would be deemed as wanton and reckless disregard for human life, that you're doing something that's so out of pocket, so out of the norm, and so likely to cause harm, and yet you proceeded to do so anyway. Now, again, the nuance, because of this fact that this is a BDSM type situation, yes, most things in that arena are going to be disregard for human life, right? Because, we're looking at asphyxiation and all that type of stuff that's done consensually. So what I think truly applies here is manslaughter, because again, they engaged in something that was, there was consent involved, and they agreed to go to a certain point. She just went a bit too far. So I think manslaughter is probably the most appropriate charge here, if any.
Still with us, former Deputy Public Defender Philip Dubé. Philip, I have to ask you this. Knowing that asphyxiation is the cause of death, homicide the manner, if in fact there was no consent, nothing in writing from this now deceased victim saying, please put the saran wrap, the bag over my head, does that mean there's a conviction? How do you get out of that on second degree when it can be a reckless disregard for human life?
Well, first of all, when you're engaging in fetishistic, kinky sex, it's not necessarily something that you articulate. You don't voice it to each other like, hey, do you want to put some shrink wrap over my head? Do you want to mummify me and let's do some kinky sex play? No, you just do it. And as you're doing it, you can circumstantially infer the consent that this is sort of like the mutual assent, if you will, of both parties. And if I'm not mistaken, this is something that she did on a regular basis, and then he paid to have done. This is sort of like a weird extracurricular activity on his part. I will say, to be fair to Michaela, though, that this is overfiled. Under California law, this should be nothing more than an involuntary manslaughter. And what that means is that it's an unintentional killing caused by criminal negligence. And the complete legal victory for her would be that this only carries 4 years. And I would be surprised that if the jury comes back on a second-degree reckless murder type implied malice theory, where you engage in a reckless act just in deliberate disregard for human life. And I don't think that's what happened here. I think instead she engaged in a criminally negligent act by not exercising due caution with complete circumspection. And that's ultimately what ended his life. But you can infer the consent by how they interacted and how they landed in bed together.
Well, Philip, here's the deal, and I think this is what might have led, I think it's probably what led to the second-degree murder charge. During the filming of this, her husband is watching. He asks her, is he still breathing? While she is performing for her OnlyFans page. It's not till she finishes performing that she realized something is wrong and calls 911. I think that little performance part is the part where they say reckless disregard. I got about 30 seconds, Philip.
Absolutely. If that comes into evidence and she is in deliberate disregard of human life, knowing good and well he can't breathe, under California law, that is a second-degree murder. Now, on the other hand, if it just truly rises to the level of criminal negligence, mean that she didn't exercise due care, she can get an invol, 4-year top.
California Penal Code, Section 192, defines manslaughter as the unlawful killing of a human being without malice, and it further states that there are 3 kinds. A, voluntary, upon a sudden quarrel or heat of passion. B, involuntary, in the commission of an unlawful act not amounting to a felony, or in the commission of a lawful act which might produce death in an unlawful manner or without due caution and circumspection. And the final subsection deals with vehicular manslaughter, which I'm not going to go into too much because I think we can all agree this has nothing to do with the vehicle. Now, after you've heard it from those attorneys and now that you're hearing it from me, I do think that there's a stretch that can be made, and it could fit into the box of malice aforethought, maybe, probably, kind of, a little bit. But I think the more likely charge here is involuntary manslaughter. I think that if we take away the fact that it was 8 minutes that had elapsed, and let's assume that the jurors just aren't really buying that argument, so they imply that there's no malice here, I think that the better argument to be made is that she was doing something dangerous, which led to his death, which is involuntary manslaughter. But let's talk about the preliminary hearing and see if the court finds that there's probable cause as to the second-degree murder charge. At this preliminary hearing, the prosecution first called Deborah Berry, who was the medical examiner who conducted the autopsy and opined that Michael's cause of death was asphyxia and the manner of death was homicide.
Was a neuropathology consultation sought and obtained in this case as well?
Yes.
All right. So was Dr. Shaver ultimately able to make some findings based on her examination and autopsy process?
Yes.
Ultimately, did you agree with Dr. Shaver's findings based on your review of the case?
Yes.
Let's talk about those findings, starting with the cause of death. What was the cause of death here?
Sure. The cause of death was complications of anoxic ischemic encephalopathy due to resuscitated cardiopulmonary arrest, due to asphyxia, due to plastic bags secured over nose and mouth.
Can you break that down for us just in plain English?
Essentially, there was a lack of oxygen to the brain because of the plastic wrapping around the head, leading to fatal injury.
How about the manner of death?
Homicide.
Doctor, we talked about earlier about pre-existing medical conditions and health complications. In the report, it notes some pre-existing health complications. How was it that you're able to rule those out as a potential cause of death?
So that's part of what the whole autopsy is intended to do. If we see something like a myocardial infarct to suggest a heart attack, that might change how we interpret everything. But ultimately, especially in the case of asphyxia, it's akin to a gunshot wound where it's an isolated event. The person might have a bunch of chronic disease as well, but that event is what really caused the death.
Last couple questions for you. There were also some toxicology findings, specifically blood alcohol content 0.308 and some trazodone on board as well. Again, how are you able to rule those out as a potential causal factor?
Yeah, exactly the same as with the natural disease, where we have this isolated occurrence, this event where the decedent was responsive and went unresponsive during this event. So regardless of what the toxicology shows, this was the inciting incident that led to the death.
Thank you, Doctor. I have no further questions.
Following Miss Berry, the prosecution next called the roommate that I was telling you guys about, Andrew Smith. In Andrew's testimony, he said that Michael had merely moved into the residence 5 days prior. The house was owned by his sister, so Andrew's sister, and it was shared amongst a number of different roommates. He said at the time of this occurrence, there were only 3 roommates that were home. And after he heard Michael gasping and telling Michaela, hey, how about I pay you more to make this all stop? He realized that Michaela was actually a sex worker who was hired on Michael's behalf.
Describe for us how it was that you became aware of the incident.
I came in to get dessert and I heard some commotion. I put my dessert back and then was proceeding back to my room to call my sister because I was like, what's going on? I got a text from one of the roommates saying all this noise.
Objection. Hearsay. Overruled. Effect on listener. Next question.
So you mentioned the commotion. Could you tell from where the commotion was coming from?
Yeah, I could tell it was coming from Michael's room because there was only 3 of us home at the time. Helen, Michael, and me. All the other roommates were either at work or gone.
You also mentioned you texted your sister. How does your sister fit into this house?
My sister owns the house. She's basically the landlord.
Okay. And you texted your sister.
I called my sister. Sorry.
Apologies.
Yeah,
Called
sorry.
your sister. What was sort of the purpose of the phone call to your sister?
I was calling my sister because Michael had brought home a female and stuff was going on that we don't really allow kind of in the house. We don't have overnight guests. We try to be respectful, but it sounded like, stuff was going on that shouldn't be going on. And I mean, to each his own, but you got roommates.
Could you be more specific? What was going on? What wasn't allowed in the house?
Well, the overnights, but he brought home, I don't know how you want me to say,
Just use your own word.
prostitute hooker or whatever. And had to go get a hotel for that. You move in 5 days and this is what's going on. I've gotten a text from the other roommate, which she said was all the noise was going on and she was scared. I could just hear him say, can we stop? I'll pay you a certain amount more money to stop. And that's when I realized that it wasn't a friend, it was prostitute or okay, whatever you want to say.
Other than you, Mr. Dale, and his guest, who else was home at this point in time?
Helen
Is
is the
that
other roommate.
your other roommate?
Yeah.
Is this the one you were texting with?
Yeah, she had sent me the text, telling me that all kinds of
Objection,
things.
hearsay.
Sustained. So you're sensing this commotion coming from Mr. Dale's room. You mentioned you put your dessert away. What do you remember next?
I remember next was Helen coming out to the garage, saying that
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled. Rebecca listener, you can continue.
coming out saying that the girl needed help. So I came into the house and walked towards Michael Dale's room with Helen and the girl. And that's when I saw Mr. Dale, and I said, you guys we need to call 911. So one of the girls, I'm not too sure who dialed 911. We got the 911 operator on the phone, and we said that, he wasn't breathing, so he was like, you guys start CPR. The girls looked at me to do it, but in my physical, I wouldn't have been able to do it. We would have had 2 ambulances coming. So the girl started CPR. When I saw the situation, the CPR was started, I went to the front door and opened it up for the ambulance or police officers that were going to be coming.
Okay. You're mentioning the girl. Are you talking about Helen or the female guest?
Oh, female guest. Sorry.
That same female guest that you're describing, do you also see here in the courtroom?
Yes, I do.
For the record, can you please describe where she's seated and what color shirt she's wearing?
I think it was red or pink, and it was
I'm sorry, today. Where is she today?
Oh, sorry. She's sitting over there. She has a gray sweatshirt on.
The witness is identified in the defense. Thank you.
I don't really know too much about this world, I'll be honest, but I can foresee a world in which jurors believe that even though Andrew said that Michael was trying to get Michaela to stop, that it was all part of the act, it was part of the ruse, and there was no safe word, so she just continued. So I don't know how much weight that really holds for me. But you guys let me know your thoughts down below. After Andrew, the prosecution called one of the first responding officers, Daniel Edwards, to the stand. Officer Edwards pretty much testified that Michaela was cooperative. She seemed concerned for Michael's safety. She did what was asked of her. She stayed on the scene. She didn't flee. She didn't run. And he was just talking about his findings and how Michael looked when he arrived.
At around 10:11 p.m., did you get a call for service at 685 Terrace Avenue, City of Escondido, County of San Diego?
I did, sir.
Did you respond?
Yes, sir.
Were you the first one there?
I was.
At what time did you arrive at the residence?
I believe it was approximately 5 minutes after the initial call for service.
Around 10:16?
Yes, sir.
So, walk us through what happened. You roll up on scene. What happens next?
When I exited my patrol car, there was 2 people standing outside of the residence who were, they were residents at that home. They stated that there was a male inside the residence that needed medical assistance. I walked inside. There's a long hallway to the left. The male's room was at the end of that hallway. I walk inside. I see a male laying on his back and a female providing CPR.
The female providing CPR. Do you see that same female here in court today?
The table to my right, wearing a gray top.
Witness is identified with the defendant. You mentioned the male laying down. Can you describe for us what you remember about his appearance?
Sure. So he appeared to be unconscious. He was lying on his back. He didn't have a shirt on. His arms were above his head, down like this. It appeared to be like some sort of tape and rope around his wrists. He was wearing red pants and had both of his legs bound together by a clear plastic wrap. and he was also wearing some black boots.
And finally, the prosecution called the detective to the stand. I couldn't find the name of the detective, so please forgive me. But the detective read off numerous different text messages, kind of like in the previous clip that I showed you, that were exchanged between Michael and Michaela, where Michael pretty much wanted most of this.
We see on the top left-hand corner, Michael Dale, and then next to that, it says the Queen. Based on your investigation, who is the Queen?
Michaela Rylaarsdam.
Okay. And then to the right of the Queen, we see a timestamp. Is that fair?
Correct.
And then to the right of that, does it tell us whether it's an incoming or outgoing text?
Yes.
All right. So this first text, is this an incoming text?
Yes.
Can you go ahead and read the body of the text for us?
The body says, so what color boots are you going to get? Black, red, pink for me. How about the bright pink?
And is this a text from Michael Dale to the defendant, Ms. Rylaarsdam?
Yes.
All right. There's mention of boots. How do the boots fit in to this? Good to go back here?
No, yeah.
Okay.
Unless, I mean, if you need to point things out, great. Otherwise, I don't think you need to be up here.
Thank you. So there's a mention of boots in this very first text. Can you tell us, based on your investigation of the case, what's the significance, if any, of the boots?
So Mr. Dale was asking Ms. Rylaarsdam to buy a pair of boots and glue them onto his feet. And when Mr. Dale was found, he did have a pair of boots glued onto his feet. They had to be removed in the emergency room.
Were those the same boots that Officer Edwards was describing?
Those are the same boots that he saw on him. I believe there was a second pair that were in the room on the floor.
So one pair glued onto Mr. Dale's feet, second pair of unused boots on the floor. Is that fair?
I believe so.
Okay. So the very next text message in the middle, what are we looking at here?
It's a photo of some dildos.
And again, is this an outgoing text from Michael Dale to the defendant, Ms. Rylaarsdam?
This is an incoming text from Michael Dale. This is from Ms. Rylaarsdam's phone. So it's an incoming text from Michael Dale to Ms. Rylaarsdam.
Thank you. You said it's a picture of dildos.
Yeah, it's a advertisement on Etsy for to buy dildos for $36.
Can you read the next text message for us on the very bottom of page 1?
It's also incoming from Mr. Dale, and it says, I was thinking of something like this, say 6 inches long, that you could put down my throat before you glue my mouth shut.
Before we flip to page 2, can you tell us what is the timestamp or time frame of these text messages?
The picture came in at 7:05 p.m. on 3/26/23, and the text message came in at 7:06 p.m. So one right after the other.
So fair to say a couple weeks before the incident?
Correct.
Let's flip to page 2. On page 3. For the record, timestamp of these first couple messages are March 27th of 2023. Is that accurate, sir?
Yes.
All right. Walk us through the first 3 texts that we see on the second page. Can we go ahead and read those and describe who's sending them and who's receiving them?
Sure. These all 3 are incoming from Michael Dale to Michaela Rylaarsdam. First is on 3/27/23. It's at 9:32 a.m. The body of the text reads, yes, I am. I have been seriously thinking about you gluing my eyes shut at the end.
Okay. How about the next text?
The next text is the same day at 11:57 a.m., which says, can we glue my eyes shut, please? So sexy, you being the last beautiful angel I ever see.
And how about the next text?
The next text is at 12 p.m., so 3 minutes later, And it states, so can we please glue my eyes shut at the end? Seriously.
That's also from Mr. Dale to the defendant.
Correct.
All right, so we see 5 total texts on this page. We've gone through 3 of them. Can you go ahead and read for us the next or 4th text message?
The next text message is an outgoing message from Michaela to Michael Dale at 12:01 p.m., which says yes.
All right, how about the 5th and final text?
That's from Michael Dale to Michaela Rylaarsdam at 12:03 p.m., which says, I seriously want a pool of glue over each eye. Okay.
If you could turn to the 3rd page from this exhibit, page 3. 4 text messages on this 3rd page. For the record, the first text, is this incoming from Michael Dale to the defendant?
Yes.
And what's the timestamp on this one?
12:05 p.m., 3/27, the same day.
And go ahead and read that for us.
I want to make sure that I can never, in capitals, I can never ever see another girl. Okay.
How about the second text message?
The second one is from Michaela Rylaarsdam to Michael Dale, outgoing at 12:09 p.m., and it says never.
And the third?
The third is from Michael Dale to Michaela Rylaarsdam. It's at 12:11 p.m., and the text reads, so does that mean you will truly and honestly put a pool of Gorilla Glue in each eye to make it truly permanent for me, my sexy angel?
And the 4th text, was this the defendant's response to that?
Yes, it's an outgoing text message from Michaela Rylaarsdam to Michael Dale at 12:13 p.m. And it says, I will do whatever we put into writing to be signed Dollface.
And I apologize I didn't say this earlier, but sources kind of were differing about this. So I just wanted to make sure that it was accurate before I said it to you guys. But I think it's true that Michael Dale was actually a doctor. After listening to all the evidence here, the court did decide that there was enough probable cause for the charge and the case against Michaela to proceed. Although I think it might be a little bit difficult for the prosecution here to prove to a jury of 12 of Michaela's peers that she acted with malice aforethought, and this is a second-degree murder case, I do agree with the court that definitionally we can fit this into the box just a smidge, and there is enough probable cause here for the charge to proceed. I explained it just a little bit earlier, but just so you guys hear me again, I think that an argument can be made for the 8 minutes or 7-8 minutes, whatever it was, that she ignored him, for that to be implied malice aforethought, just a smidge. It's just a smidge. I think that it will be harder to prove to a jury of Michaela's peers that she acted with malice aforethought, and much like the other attorneys that I let you guys hear from, I think that this is more likely a manslaughter case, involuntary manslaughter in my opinion. But I want to hear your thoughts down below. Do you think that the court got it right when it decided that there was enough probable cause for the second-degree murder charge? Do you think, kind of like me and the other attorneys you heard from, that this should be a manslaughter case? Do you think that Michaela should have been charged at all? Specifically because Michael kind of requested all of this treatment. Just let me know all of your thoughts down below. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Until next time, y'all take care.